physicians, I think they don't see, and I think a lot of us, so much money's being spent by, it's not their money, it's being spent by other people. And in healthcare, you got 10 administrators now for every one physician, 10 to 1. So I think we as consumers and as receivers of healthcare, that we need to be more concerned about how the system is set up and how it's structured.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Justin Nabity, founder and partner at Physicians Thrive. Justin, how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's good to be with you.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you for spending some time with us on Business Ninjas.
Absolutely.
Please tell us a bit about yourself and about Physicians Thrive.
We are an advisory group that is helping physicians all across the country with getting into their first contracts, their second contracts, their third contracts, or even sunsetting their last contract. Or it could be helping them start their own private practice, anything to do with business, financial, and legal aspects. There's about this much emphasis on medicine and this much emphasis on business. They don't get much support in that area. And so we exist to help them understand what their worth is, because doctors don't really know what they're worth anymore. Back in the 1980s, they used to be in control of medicine, used to be in charge of the practices. And nowadays it's completely flipped. You've got pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies now calling the shots. And so they're really in a lot of pressure these days to be able to keep up with the times, the changes, and they need a ton of support. So that's what we do.
Gotcha. And what's your background? How'd you end up starting Physicians Thrive?
Yeah. So I'm a certified financial planner that came by way of being third generation in financial services, but I married into a family of doctors. So my wife's father's a doctor, just retired from emergency medicine. Both of her brothers' wives are in medicine. Her aunt and uncle are in medicine. On my side, there's family practice, ENT, and OBGYN. So we're right in the center of all of it. And we got to see firsthand some of the challenges that they face, specifically with contracts and business. And so, these are the people who are there for us. They're supposed to help us be our best. And when you look at the state of affairs, suicide rates double among the physician population and the average population. And 75% of medical students are on antidepressants and stimulants. Like I said, that pressure is real. And if they're not taking care of themselves, if they're not healthy, then what's that going to do for us? And we've spent record amounts of money on healthcare. And yet our society is struggling with sickness so rampantly, and doctors only get 7 to 8% of the revenue of that total almost $5 trillion of spend on healthcare. Things are really upside down. And so, as you can see, we developed a real passion around this subject because the best and the brightest used to be revered at this level are now viewed as factory workers in the healthcare process. And for you and me as patients, we can look to one person to blame for why healthcare is not good. And we think it's the doctor, when in reality, 90+% of the money that's lobbied in healthcare or toward healthcare spending is coming from big companies, the healthcare institutions, the drug companies, the insurance companies. The physicians have a very small lobby, very small representation. And so they're so busy taking care of us, they don't have time to take care of themselves. And it's caused them to get to this point in time where they don't have the support that they need. So that's why we exist.
I was completely unaware of the stats you just rattled off in terms
It's
of
terrible.
the mental health status of
Yeah.
medical students and doctors. It doesn't really shock me, I have to say. I mean, as a consumer / patient, when I go to a doctor, I get a piece of paper in the mail maybe 60 days later saying this is not a bill.
You're right.
And then maybe 60 days after that, I get notified that my insurance company has paid the doctor, let's say 20 cents on the dollar what they billed in the first place.
Yeah.
So my brain says a person who has gone through at least 7 years of an education and a residency
Yep.
is getting paid 20 cents on the dollar on 120 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's not sustainable.
No.
So no, I completely understood the position. Hey,
And that's why
Go ahead, please.
That's why we're supporting HR 10073, which is to stop the Medicare cuts. It's actually to reverse some of that cutting. We've seen nothing but cuts every year on physician pay, and facilities are getting inflation adjustments. Mid-levels are getting inflation adjustments. You look at the Nurse Association, they're 200,000 members strong. They're doing a good job representing themselves. They're getting traction. Why are physicians at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to making sure that, and it's not just for them, it's for you, it's for me. It's 7 to 10 minutes of average time with a physician as your patient visit is not enough. You can't take the complexity of what's going on inside of your body and think that you're going to be able to have the 10 years of education and experience from a doctor transfer in that short amount of time to me as the patient to understand what I need to be doing. And so it's a real challenge. You've got the physician shortage, you've got the cost of education continuing to rise, average debt per physicians, 200,000 plus. It's a real deterrent, I think, for people that want to go into this profession to think, is it worth it? Was it going to be worth the return on investment? It's a big question mark.
It has changed a lot in the last few decades. I mean, as a kid, you thought, oh, you're going to be a doctor. You're the guy with the Porsche and the summer home and incredible cash flow. And that has evaporated in the last few years. Easy. I also have family members in the profession who scratched their heads for 30, 40 years at the risk reward of being surgeon, as malpractice insurance rates go up, as corporations take over hospitals and see potential patients as a liability more than a person that you're trying to serve, then the entire equation goes away.
Yeah.
And the idea that you want to go to someone for help who is unhappy in their position and the way they're being paid for it and rushing you through the process, that doesn't serve anyone. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is there a particular size of medical practice that you work with? Are we talking about individual physicians, small groups, up to what verticals are you servicing a physician's?
Yeah, great question. So we're helping physicians that are in the very early stage, whether they're still in residency and fellowship, and sometimes even the M4s, the last year of medical school. We have different teams within our organization. We're the largest advisory group in the country. We have hundreds of employees across the U.S. We serve physicians in all 50 states, all specialties, all practice types. So it could be the young doctor getting started, or it could be the physician who's saying, I've had a great run at this and I want to sell my practice. I want to exit this. Or it could be that we're negotiating. It's fun. We get family members that will contact us concerned about confidentiality because their spouse is the number one doctor at an institution that's looking to make a change. That there's a lot of politics behind that. And so they come to us and help them do the exit and do the entrance into new places, because just like professional athletes have agents that represent them, we essentially are doing the same thing when it comes to these contracts these physicians sign. I mean, we're talking, it could be $500,000 or more, depending on what the specialty is. You take that over the course of several years, it's a multi-million-dollar contract. And so there's a lot at stake with these. And so the whole spectrum. Some of us are more on the side of helping with the business ownership side of medicine, and then some are more on the employment side of medicine. But you think about going into medicine, and for me as a financial advisor, financial planner, it shocks me when physicians say continuously, every year it's reported, the number one concern among physicians is having enough money to retire. That's the number one concern.
Hey,
how is it possible? Like you said, when you were young, it was like becoming a physician is the way to have the career, have potential lifestyle, have the options. And every age group is reporting that is their concern. It's astounding that that's the case. And it's trading time for money. As a business owner, as business leaders, I love your brand with the ninja aspect of this. And, business is the best way to build wealth. And anybody who tells you otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about. It's too hard to cut your expenses enough. You can't cut your expenses enough to build wealth. You can try to produce more income as an employee, but there's a limit to that too. you could crush it in sales, I suppose, but it's difficult too. Building teams and systems and processes and scale, that is the way to build wealth ultimately. And physicians are in a position where it's hard for them because they're in a career that's, for the most part, trading time for money. So for us, it's about how do we help them go from being stuck in that quadrant, as I think back to the rich dad, poor dad quadrant of trading time for money exclusively, and work their way up and then over and then down into the investor category where they have options that are paying them passively. They have assets, they have property, they have business, they have surgery center ownership, they have different things to create passive income. Because until they graduate from the employee quadrant to the self-employed quadrant to the business owner quadrant to the investor quadrant, they're going to be stuck and not have the way to get that freedom. And so that's really where we do our planning, is to help them get access to those, to get into, the world and the options that we have.
It's amazing. Medicine is one of many career paths where you go to study it and all they teach you in a tunnel vision manner is the skill set, but they don't teach you how to actually apply it and follow the profession and make a career and make a living out of it. I mean, it's not a small component of the process, right?
It isn't. And I lecture at institutions all across the country. I've got hundreds of groups that I speak at, and it's funny, the places that are interested in having a speaker, or maybe there's a doctor that wants us to come speak, sometimes their programs will say, yeah, no, we don't have time for that. We're too busy. Our job, I've had medical directors that oversee the young doctors. They say, yeah, our job is to teach them medicine, and that's it. That's the only responsibility that we have. And so we don't have time for that. And most institutions understand that they're lacking in the curriculum and that they need someone to talk on the up to 30 topics that we have. We have a whole lecture series that we teach young doctors. And so understanding what their worth is, compensation models, income taxation, the change, and understanding the 1099 versus the W-2, like the variation there, and how, personal or commercial real estate, like those different components, cash flow modeling, pro formas, checking the metrics. Like, one of the big mistakes that doctors make is that they don't track their numbers immediately after they join their practice. They think, well, I'm getting a guaranteed salary, and as long as I do my work and I perform and I keep on doing what I've been doing, I should be fine. No. They need to get monthly reporting on how well they're doing, what type of revenue they're creating, what type of production that they have, what their RVUs are, if they're paid on RVUs, their CPT codes, their billings, their collections, like all these different factors. Even if they're an employee, they have to put their business hat on. They have to. And they think, well, I didn't go into medicine to be a business person. Well, it doesn't matter. You have to put your business hat on to an extent. Now, we're big fans, just like any super successful person. They have a team. You have specialists. You have people that you trust, that that will provide good advice to you. Have an advisory board. Have people in your life that can hit on all the different areas of your life. You shouldn't master everything, but you need to at least have the wherewithal to know who you should have on your team, and if they're a fiduciary or not, and what the requirements are. So there's a lot of factors there that they should have, but it's just shocking how little some of these groups are. They don't think that they should equip them. And then why does the turnover rate continue to be so high? Most doctors, like 70% plus, don't stay in their first job. They don't even make it to the full term of their contract. What does that do to them? They have signing bonuses they have to pay back. They have malpractice tail insurance they have to buy. That can cost them $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Or if you're an OBGYN, they can cost you over $200,000 to buy the tail to protect you after you leave. So there's all these different factors. It's stress that they don't need if they got a little bit more equipping. And that's, like I said, why we exist. We're the number one brand. There's nobody else like us that does this. And we're making a difference. And we're helping, physician by physician and group by group get stronger with their practices, grow revenue, become more profitable, and, be able to get more control of their lives.
And my perspective is that you're freeing them up to ply their craft. You're de-stressing them so that they can focus on our health. I mean, what's more important in the equation?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
You just mentioned, do you have competitors? Are there other people doing what you do specifically?
You know, if there's 20 things that we do, because there's a lot of different things that we do, student loan repayment, private equity, investments in real estate, income tax planning, financial planning, investments, retirement planning, uh, disability, life insurance, estate planning. I mean, the list is very extensive, and no one person does everything because we have different individuals on the team that do these things. So there are competitors everywhere for like a piece of the things, but nobody else is a one-stop shop like us. They literally have one phone number they can call, which is the quarterback to really that advisory board approach where they have one captain that can lead. And if they don't have all these people involved, then that's what we do. We'll satisfy a core area, but then we'll lead all the other areas. We'll bring in the estate planning attorney. We'll bring in the tax attorney or the CPA. We'll bring in the trust attorney if there's some trust work that needs to be done. Whatever the situation might be. It might be even that the physician has family members that haven't done their estate planning, and that affects them and their siblings. And so we help lead with getting the parents where they need to be with things. So it's pretty robust and broad, but we have specialists in each of the areas. And when you have hundreds of employees and you have a network that is around that employee base, there's nobody even close to us. You have individual like competitors on some service lines, but nobody else is like us whatsoever, not even close.
Hey, as somebody with, family members in the industry, I wish they had met you 20 years ago, although I'm sure you weren't in business. Let's back up a step. What's the origin story? When did you launch Physicians Thrive?
So it was about 20 years ago, and we grew and grew, and we needed to have a bigger team. And so we merged with Larson. Larson's our parent company. And so we're all one team. And the origin story is that one of our family members got taken advantage of by an employer in a bad contract situation. And it was so bad that he had to sue to get records, which you never want to do. That's what discovery requires. It kicks up records. And he was owed a bunch of money, and obligations weren't fulfilled that were supposed to be fulfilled to this family member. And the good news is they won in court. There was hundreds of thousands of dollars that were owed, and they collected a good chunk of it, not all of it. There's also a restrictive covenant involved that said they had to leave and had to relocate the family for a period of time. And so, you go from getting help on reviewing paperwork, contract review with this set of paperwork, to be proactive. And that's how it started. There was counsel involved at the beginning. And then it changed where there was a handshake, a restructuring that didn't get honored. And then it turned into a legal case where the paperwork, if you print out all the pages from the court case, from the floor to the ceiling, you stack it up, that's how tall it was. And it was not getting paperwork in order when the handshake piece, when the relationship changed, and they thought there was mutual respect that was going to be there, but it wasn't followed through with, and it caused some serious damage. So the last thing that a physician ever wants to get involved with is some sort of legal battle. And this family member, this was the last thing they ever wanted to deal with. And it happened. And, when my mentor, who was an advisor at Cleveland Clinic, does a lot of work with physicians there, and he's been there helping them. He's still at this. He's been doing this more than 40 years. He showed me just this huge gap of not knowing some of these core critical components. And it just convinced us that they need help, and need help in a big way and in a comprehensive way, not just one area. Like for us as financial planners, everything starts with income. And so if we don't get the income right at the beginning, it's going to set a course that's maybe not going the direction it should for planning, versus if we set the income right, it can send things in the right direction. And so that's what triggered it for us, was the family situation, seeing family members that are going into the profession, my wife's brothers, that's the struggle, the lack of information. It's like, this is not right. We have to find a way to close this gap.
it comes back to, it's remarkable to me that every medical college in the country doesn't mandate some sort of at least basic course on understanding contractual law and taxation, all the things that we're talking about, because it's not like any of them can go through life without dealing with those things.
Nope.
So you're spending quarter to $500,000 on an education and not being prepared for your craft. I mean,
You don't do. This reminds me of one of my favorite teachers of all time, Milton Friedman. And he says there's 4 ways you can spend money. I bring this up because it's helpful for anybody who's thinking about money and just lifestyle and everything in government and structure. And then specifically for physicians, they need to know that you can spend your money on yourself, which you sacrifice, and you put a lot of effort into creating that money for yourself. And you're going to be the most careful with it because you had to sacrifice something. You can spend your money on someone else, and you had to sacrifice something, and you're spending that money towards someone else. You're going to be careful with it, but probably not as careful as it would be if you're spending it on yourself. You can spend other people's money on yourself. That could be a corporate account. Your company gives you a card, and you can go out to lunch and things like that. And you can't go too crazy with it, obviously, because there's a limit, but are you going to be as careful on getting as much bang for your buck on that? No, probably not as much, but somewhat. And then you can spend other people's money on other people. And who does that? Who does that? Think about what we spend in taxes. Taxes and inflation are such a problem that we're so numb to it as a society. We're so blind to it because it's been so incremental, from the time you start paying attention to this when you're a young adult, then progressing, you see how far we've come, how bad things are. Physicians, I think, they don't see, and I think a lot of us, so much money's being spent it's not their money, it's being spent by other people. And in healthcare, you got 10 administrators now for every 1 physician. 10 to 1. It used to be 5 doctors to 1 administrator. That makes sense, right? You have a support person. It's like their job is to make sure that all of those revenue producers, those service providers, are all being taken care of. There should be some efficiency there supporting those. You shouldn't have to have an upside down scaling situation. And so we have a huge problem in healthcare where other people's money is being spent by other people. And that's what insurance has turned into. You have record profits. These quarterly reporting of numbers are astronomical. And you're not getting value from that. I'm not getting value from that. My quality of healthcare is not going up.
And the physician's quality of life is not going up. No,
I just think from a general understanding perspective, as consumers, as owners of this country, and think about the people who are making decisions in DC, like they're supposed to work for us. And if they don't do a good job, they should be replaced. Like we should be firing them and getting new people in there that actually give a rip about how our money is being spent. Because all this money is being spent in so many different places. It's just completely wasteful. And so I think it's important for us to think we need to get back to, reducing this as much as possible, curbing this, and being in a position where we can control these 2 things. Because we care. We're so much more diligent and careful and good stewards of how we spend money on ourselves. And we're so far away from that in everything, really. Government's the worst. But healthcare is not too far away from how reckless and how wasteful our government is with the money that we give them. I get no return really on my money with the government, except for the military and maybe transportation. Outside of that, nothing else. When I really distill it down to make it simple, and we need to expect more from those that are taking those dollars. And so I think we as consumers and as receivers of healthcare, that we need to be more concerned about how the system is set up and how it's structured, and the fact that a physician has to get things prior authorized before they can treat you. They have to get permission from an unlicensed, uneducated, untrained, never seen a patient in their life. They've never provided patient care in their life. They're deciding if the patient should receive what the physician knows the patient should receive. Like, we as patients should be outraged that that's happening. It shouldn't be allowed. So we need to support the physician community to let them get back more in control of decision making, because they've been too far removed from those decisions is really what it's boiled down to.
No, it's I mean, it affects every last one of us, even if young people don't see it because maybe they haven't had enough exposure to the medical practices and to the industry to feel it, but we
Yeah.
all do eventually. And no, things have to change. Obviously, again, I appreciate that you're helping free up doctors to be physicians as opposed to, fretting about the business end of things, because it's not, things are not right these days. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Switch gears for a second. Tell me
Yeah.
how you guys have been telling your story. What role content has played in the growth of Physicians Thrive?
Yeah. Content is really, think about like cash is king, that whole phrase that we're so used to hearing. Content is king. It is. And, when I started the company, it was traveling every other week all across the country, teaching at universities, medical centers, hospitals. And it was expensive. It was time consuming, and it was hard. And, we don't have to do that anymore, but, went from connecting with people in person, having them fill out information cards and staying connected and communicating over email and trying to build up this database and continuing to share content that way. But, one of the things I was thinking about before we were going to get together and have this conversation was thinking about what is one thing that oftentimes gets neglected, and that's that SWOT analysis. And, we do that SWOT analysis for our business or for our project or for our team or whatever. And then kind of let that, we do it and then it sits and we don't go back and revisit it for very long. Well, what changed for us is that we did a SWOT analysis at one point, and we figured out that we're too reliant upon things that we can't control. And that is other marketing avenues. And we found that one thing that we can control is content. And that's important because content doesn't just get put out there and then disappears. Like email can disappear, or pay-per-click can disappear, or a speaking engagement can disappear. I mean, you certainly can record it and you can produce that content, and that content can be reproduced, and that's different. That's a form of content that can have some everlasting, some evergreen aspect to it. But content on your webpage, on your brand, is so important. And so we got very focused on that probably 7, 8 years ago. And once we did, it changed a whole lot. And one of the things that I'm proud of about our company is that we never did any cold calls. Think about financial advisors, and they start out with contacting their friends and family, and they try to kind of develop their footprint and then start to kind of build their network from there. We never had to do that. Everything that we did was in response to our speaking engagements and things like that. But even better than that is our content plan, because now we have tens of thousands of physicians finding us online. They're coming to us, they're reaching out to us because we've done the things that your team does. And it's phenomenal, because you're building, every time you work on something, you're building an asset, and the asset builds on the asset builds on the asset. And you're also providing value. You're truly helping people who need knowledge, they need understanding, they need to know what they should do in this complex world and these complex areas of what to do with things. And you as a content producer are able to teach, educate, and yet there's only so much a person can do, and you help them understand some steps they can take, and then essentially you're teeing them up to know that you are the place that they should go to help them with the thing that they're consuming on your website for content. And it's a treasure trove, and something that we consistently are working on every week, every month. And it's kind of fun, actually. And, I learned the hard way, actually. I fumbled through a number of different contractors, vendors, strategies. And it takes finding someone like you who knows what they're doing, has a track record, and doesn't just have an engagement that you don't really know if you're getting what you're supposed to be getting. Like you're investing this time and effort into it, but are you really getting some outcome? Are you able to track your progress? Which I like also about this is that when you do content strategies, there's tools that you can track. Is it working or is it not working? And if it's not working, you can tweak and you can make changes. And yeah, there's algorithm updates and Google changes things and the search engines are restructuring and they're trying to optimize over and over again. But if you have a team like yours involved, then it makes it easier for you to respond to those adjustments. Sometimes those updates can negatively impact your content and you have to do some adjustments and make some changes. And sometimes it actually enhances your content. You can see swings up and down sometimes. It is definitely not a short-term play. It's a longer-term play. It's a 6 months plus. We celebrate the times when we'll produce a piece of content and it will rank in the top 10 within days or a week, but that hardly ever happens. Usually it takes 3-6 months, and if it's really difficult content to rank for, it can take a year. And so it's something that it does take effort. You have to be very deliberative with it, and you have to stay on it. You can't just set it and forget it. But for us, it's made a big difference for us because now we've got such a huge following. People are finding us. We're the number one brand online for anything that has to do with these things that we've been talking about that physicians need help with. We're number one. And I attribute a lot of that to do with the fact that we figured out that content is king, and it's a huge priority for us.
Well, hey, I appreciate the endorsement. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
You're describing the difference between outbound marketing and inbound marketing.
Yeah.
And hey, Google's still in the business of getting it right. No matter how they tweak their algorithm, no matter how many responses are coming through Gemini instead of just Google,
Yep.
the quality of your content, its ability to speak to the topics right now that your potential clients are asking is critical. It doesn't matter whether it's going through a straight Google search or it's going through an AI tool like ChatGPT or Gemini. If your content is high quality and it is meeting the requirements of your clients right now, it's going to get the attention of the algorithm, whichever algorithm it is. So yes, there are ebbs and flows and changes, and we may be at an inflection point in terms of what percentage of people are actually asking ChatGPT for their results now. But the reality is your content is still that fiber that has to connect the dots, and the better it is, the more likely you are to get to the right eyes.
Yeah, and this question is so important for anyone in business or whatever industry, but even for physicians, if you're in practice and you have something to do with getting new patients to come to you, finding out, how did you hear about me, or what drove you to come contact me? And it's fun that you bring this up. Like, how did you find out about Physicians Thrive? Well, we heard about you through ChatGPT. I plugged in ChatGPT, I asked a question, and it gave you as the result. It's like, okay, like the things that are changing with AI, like we need to be ready, available, and findable in those specific mediums.
Well, the old line is you got to go fishing where the fish are.
Yep.
It's changing, so we got to stay on top of it.
Yep. And you got to have I think it's important to have somebody who knows this well, because there are groups that I've met with, even physicians that have had side hustles that they've created, and they were pursuing one route of building content and using tools, and it was working for a period of time. But then I can go pull up their database, their data set right now, and I can find they got hit by an algorithm change really hard, and they've suffered ever since. They basically got their traffic slashed in half because what they were doing wasn't organic, it wasn't quality, it wasn't the things that it needed to be for it to stay relevant and to pass the test of the quality meter that is required. And so again, that's why if a business is not connected with you or someone who does what you do, like, they're behind the times and they're not going to be keeping up, I don't think, with getting the right ROI on the spend of what they could be doing to generate a type of inbound, which is it's the dream of any business, is to have the inbound versus spending on, just continuous outbound. It can be exhausting. On the outbound effort can be too much.
Hey, we're in an AI era. Everybody wants to talk about AI. It is still just a tool. I have a client who said, if you don't know what excellence looks like, AI is not going to get you there. It's a very simple little phrase, but I'll let that marinate for a minute. Again, AI is just a tool. It still has to be implemented with
It
skill
does.
and precision and artistry and authority, right?
Yep. Yep. And there's a lot of opportunity with AI. I mean, one of our clients co-founded a group called Insight Surgical, and we've had a big involvement with that company, and it's creating a way for everything to be tracked in the operating room. And it's weird to think that you don't have cutting edge computer vision tech in the operating room like you have in sports or the automobile or the airline or delivery companies or vehicle, just there's so many different things that exist. It doesn't exist in the operating room. And Insight Surgical built it. They've got a bunch of patents on it, and it is radically transforming the ability for a health system to know what they're spending. And it's improving efficiency so they can get more cases done. And there's actually an infection risk associated. The longer that you're cut open in the operating room, as you can imagine, it makes sense, the higher chance of infection. So shorter operative times are better for you as a patient. So it's helping with efficiency, with safety. It's preventing infection risk with the way it's tracking a number of different aspects of things that bring infection into the room. And it's helping manage costs. Like, health systems are losing a bunch of money because they're not billing insurance companies the right way. And so it's helping the health system turn a lot of what they're struggling with, which is not managing these different centers, these departments as well as they should. And there's nothing like it. It's surprising. Again, like the operating room, you would think that would be like state of the art, cutting edge, that there would be like this standard of best practice on every surgeon, every surgery team, every type of procedure. It's kind of the wild, wild west. Yes, yes, there's training. There's training done by the directors in these programs, but when you go watch a surgeon perform in this room versus this room, even in the same facility, how they do things and their steps and their methods, there's a lot of variance. And there is a better way to do things. Some might be better ways for some surgeons than others, but there's some collective knowledge sharing that could happen. And so AI is starting, I think, to create some inroads in some places. And so I'm excited about what Insight Surgical is doing. And it's a company we're checking out because it's going to be everywhere. It's really making a difference in the community, and it's going to help us as patients get better quality of care as well.
Well, amen. I mean, that's at the end of the day, is that not what the entire intent of the industry of medicine is about, is treat
Yep.
human beings? And, look down the road a year from now. What are some things you'd like to be celebrating personally and professionally?
It's a great question. One is to see the full expansion of the commercial efforts of Insight Surgical from a professional perspective. I'd love to see the vision that was started back from a grant that was provided at Stanford to go figure out what's wrong with the operating room. So see that in full-fledged expansion. We're trying to make sure that every department in every residency program and fellowship program in the United States has access to the curriculum that is needed. So down the road, I'd love to see that there's the gap has been closed, that these programs have access to what they need to be able to teach their physicians. And I love to see that physician pay is more commensurate with what it should be, that physicians know what their worth is. And then we start to see that you and I are getting access to more time with our healthcare providers, that they're these individuals who know the body so well that they can actually speak to and help us get better. And so, I'm a big proponent of health and wellness, and I've done a bunch of Ironmans and a bunch of these endurance races, and I've seen a huge transformation in my own personal life. And so many people who don't have and haven't been able to do those kinds of things yet. I'd love to see that we see a uptick in the quality of health and the ability to really within our brand to thrive. Like thrive is such a powerful word for us that we love that word because it really embodies why we exist, is to help others and our team be able to flourish and have just an amazing sort of outlook on life. And I love to be able to see that, it trickles down to us as the patients to be able to get to a better place.
I really appreciate what you do. I mean, again, if you can help free a physician to A, thrive, and B, not be a stress ball like we're talking about,
Yeah.
and just concentrate on their craft and treating human beings, then that's a rising tide that lifts all boats.
That's it.
Period.
That's it.
What's your URL? Where can people find Physicians Thrive, and what social media outlets are you using?
Yeah, we're pretty much using all of them. So physiciansthrive.com. You can reach out to us that way. Love to talk with you if you like to have us on and to share more about this or some specific ways that you can get involved in what we're doing. I'd love to talk about it.
Excellent. Justin Nabity, thank you for spending some time with us today on Business Ninjas. Really, all the best to you and yours. Continued success at Physicians Thrive, because if you have success, we all get better.